Hi, everyone, and welcome to our latest speaker series session. My name's Grant, and I am a marketing manager here at Written Word Media. Today, we have a very special guest, Laura Terry. A physical therapist since 1998, Laura has a private PT practice called Yoga and Physical Therapy in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Today, Laura will lead a discussion in mindfulness with writing. She will also demonstrate some different ergonomic desk setups and accessible short movement practices that you can implement yourself while writing. If you have any questions for Laura during her presentation, just feel free to leave a comment on this video, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the session. So without further ado, everyone welcome Laura Terry.
Hi, thanks for having me. Grant gave a great introduction, and I will just talk a little bit more about what I do and how this discussion might be helpful for you guys. So I've been a PT for almost 25 years, and I've taught yoga for about 15 years. And I lead a yoga teacher training hosted by UNC's program on integrative medicine. And as Grant was saying, I have a practice in Chapel Hill. So a lot of my career has been about movement, posture, positioning, mindfulness, and recovery from prevention and injury. So Grant asked me to talk about mindfulness and writers, or using mindfulness in the process of writing. So just keeping in mind, the mindfulness doesn't necessarily mean sitting on the floor cross-legged meditating. It can also just be mindfulness of what's happening in your body, what's happening in your mind. So it could be a check-in with yourself, could be short movement breaks, could be taking a few deep breaths, could be changing your posture, your position. It could even be asking yourself, what do I need right now? Mindfulness can also be a fuller practice, like a yoga practice, a daily meditation practice, a walk or other movement practice to get outside of your head and into your body. It could be a breathing practice as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about ergonomics and desk setup. So I see a lot of clients who have neck and shoulder pain and issues, and especially since the beginning of the pandemic, more people are on their computers, their meetings are on Zoom, they're doing these workshops more remotely. So spending more time in potentially postures that aren't healthy or aren't good for your system. And spending less time moving and doing other positions and postures. So unhealthy posture for long periods of time can lead to muscle tension, and specifically for you guys around the neck, shoulders, upper back, chest. That tension can actually trigger headaches. Forward shoulder position, I'll turn a little to the side here, but forward head, forward shoulder position can actually cause some impingement of nerves that run from the neck and down to the arms. You can get carpal tunnel syndrome from wrist and hand position at the computer. And so those are some reasons to be mindful of your posture and your desk setup. So we're going to go through some checklists to think about how your work setup is. And if you're sitting or standing at your desk now, you might follow along and see if you're on target with your setup. And in a moment, I might switch back and forth between this front view of me and then like a side view of me, so you can see my profile. So thinking about the chair, if you're sitting, making sure that chair is height adjustable. So as opposed to sitting at like the kitchen chair or dining room chair, that you have the ability to adjust the height of that based on your leg length and desk height. Make sure your chair supports your lower back, meaning if it's not adjustable, some of you might have some pretty fancy chairs that you can increase or decrease the lumbar support or raise it up or lower. But you might also have like a external lumbar support that you add to the chair, or it could even just be like a throw pillow off your couch. And make sure there's room between the front edge of the seat and the back of your knees so it doesn't cut off that circulation. When you're using a keyboard or a mouse, you're able to keep your arms in a comfortable position with the elbows at your sides, as opposed to having to like reach forward here, which can put a lot of strain on the neck and shoulders. Your feet rest flat on the floor, or you have a footrest under there. When you sit upright in your chair, your thighs are approximately parallel to the floor. So I'm going to come back to that in a moment, just so we're not having to toggle back and forth between the views. If you're at a standing desk, and I'm going to say a lot of my clients ask me, is a standing best better or sitting best better? But it just depends on how long you're there, what's going on in your body. And my usual statement is it's good to vary your position. So if you have an adjustable height desk, then sitting for 30 minutes, standing for 30 minutes, taking a break for 5 minutes. So you vary your position. That's actually going to be the best for most of us. So if you're adjusting that desk, make sure the keyboard height allows your elbows to be bent at about 90 degrees. And if you're having trouble seeing this because you're in your body as opposed to outside, then you might take a picture or have someone take a picture of you, or give you feedback as to where, if that elbows are at 90 degrees. And this is one that I think surprises people, is wearing supportive shoes when you're at your standing desk. So think about surgeons or chefs, people who have to stand still for long periods of time. They wear really supportive shoes. They might not be great walking or running shoes, but they're good support for the arch. And that's going to help support your posture and make, sometimes the low back can get tired, and the shoes can help with that. Your posture is related to where your weight is. So often when I get tired, I'll shift over to one hip and unweight one leg. And so if I find myself doing that, and I usually tend to do it to one side, then I'm just doing that little check-in as to where my weight shift is. Do I have my weight going down through both feet equally? I'm going to come back to that, I think. Yeah, so actually, let's take a break. Grant, can you show me from the side view? Okay. So I actually don't have great ergonomic setup right now because I tried to raise the monitor so you're not looking at my nose, but I'm going to turn this here so that you could see I've got the desk height here in my standing desk with the elbows bent at about 90 degrees. I've got these UFO shoes on, which give me some good arch support and some cushioning. In a moment, I'll talk about it here, but I've got a different type of mouse here at the side that's a little more ergonomic for my wrist and thumb. And so the stand taller piece. So I use this a lot in my yoga classes, but it's just about how to be mindful of your posture. So often we'll get into these positions where we kind of slump and the head goes forward, the shoulders forward, the upper back rounds. And that's happens a lot when we fatigue as well. So that's why changing the positions can be helpful. But instead of thinking, okay, pull my head back, shoulders back, belly in, which is sort of unsustainable and even hard to breathe in that position. If you think of this, like 2 cues I'm going to give you here, think about where your tailbone is. Lengthen the tailbone straight down towards the floor and the top of the head up towards the ceiling. So I'm lengthening my spine from both ends. And what that does, so here I am in that slump posture. So you can see my head is forward of my shoulders, my upper back rounding. When I lengthen the tailbone down, the top of the head up, it aligns my ears over my shoulders over my hips over my feet. And if you're not turning everything on at like 110%, 50 or 60% effort, you can maintain this for a little bit longer. And just for the chair, I don't want to take the time to raise and lower my desk here, but, and this isn't a great chair either, but having that lumbar support, that low back support here is pretty important. Instead of being perched, because that takes a lot of effort and energy, and then you're going to end up kind of slumped. So that having that low back support helps keep the ears over the shoulders over the hips in that position, feet flat on the floor. And you're going to, again, that 90-degree angle is optimal. Okay. All right. And you can, Grant, you can take the profile view off. Thank you. So looking at your keyboard and your mouse and making sure they're approximately at elbow height, so that same height as the desk. Your arms are in or near your trunk. So often people using a mouse, that mouse will kind of meander further out and away as you work. And then you start to engage muscles around the neck and the shoulders. So just keeping that in mind, you want to keep it in close. You might consider using an alternate mouse, especially if you are only using the trackpad of your laptop. So this one I have here has my wrist in more of a neutral position. There we go. And the thumb in a more neutral position. And it has a little, the roller here so I can scroll up and down, right and left click. So if you have wrist issues or thumb issues from using the computer, there are lots of different mice out there. And I have here on this slide where you can, that just has a list of, but if you also just Google mouse alternatives, computer mouse alternatives, then you'll see some different ones that might be useful for you as well. So the monitor checklist. So if you have an external monitor, make sure that it's more or less directly in front of you, in front of the keyboard, as opposed to off to the side. If you're using 2 monitors, sometimes that's a little bit harder, but the closer they can be to the center or the one that you use the most, closer to the center, so that you're not having to turn your head in one direction for longer periods of time. You want the viewing distance to be at least 18 inches. So from your eyes to the monitor screen, 18 inches or a little bit more. The top of the computer screen is below eye level, slightly below. And your computer monitor is protected from excessive glare, or you wear, so I have glasses that have that protective glare on there, which can be helpful if the eyes get tired. And if you wear bifocals or progressive lenses, notice what you're having to do to see the monitor. So if you're having to tip the head back to see through the reading or the close-up part of it, you might be changing the position of your head and your neck and your posture. So I actually had these glasses made that are halfway between monitor and reading, and they actually work really well for me. Yeah. We're going to talk just a little bit more, and then I'll do a little bit more movement. So thinking about breaks during work, taking a 5-minute break every hour is recommended. And if you're on a roll, sometimes you can kind of blow right through that hour. So I would recommend setting an alarm on your computer, on your phone, or something like that to give you a chance to take a break, change your position, take some deep breaths, move, stop looking at the screen, take your hands away from the keyboard or the mouse. And that optimal desk arrangement is adjustable to allow you to stand some and sit some, like we talked about before. Basically, our bodies are not designed to stay in one position for long periods of time unless we're sleeping. So artificially having ourselves sit at a monitor or computer for long periods of time, our body doesn't like it. And you probably know that already. So some check-ins that you can do. Some are about posture. So am I slumped? So this could be in that alarm you set for that 5-minute break, or it could be every time you check your email, every time you start a new page, you check in with yourself. So posture, am I slumped? Can I adjust that? Do I need more support? Am I shifted to one side in standing? Am I leaning on one armrest? Am I sitting with one leg on the chair? So a lot of people kind of tuck one leg under there. And if you sit like that for a long period of time, that can really throw your pelvis off and cause hip and low back pain. Am I leaning on the desk? Am I breathing? So sometimes if you get really wrapped up in what you're doing, you might be taking shallow breaths. You might be holding your breath frequently. How long has it been since you've taken a deep breath? Would I be more efficient, accurate, creative if I took a break or even just a deep breath before finishing this task or before sending an email or all those kinds of things? And that's, for me, that's something it's challenging for me, is when I'm on a roll or if I just want to get this done, then I won't stop and take a break, but then I often make errors, forget to put the attachment on the email, grammatical errors, spelling. So that's that's something just to keep in mind too. So the check-ins, notice and then correct. It's humanly impossible to be aware 100% of the time, mindful 100% of the time. But the more you are, even if it's just 10-second check-in, the more you correct the posture, or you take deeper breaths, or you do those movement breaks that we're going to talk about here in a moment. Okay. Everybody doing okay so far? Grant, doing okay? I'm going to assume that's a yes. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Yeah. And we're going to do a little bit of movement. So I think, Grant, if you can see me from the profile view, yeah, good. Okay. So we're going to do some things from a seated position. So these are movements that you can do from the chair. And if you want to participate, feel free. If you want to just watch, that's totally fine. So what we're going to do is just start to move the spine and deepen the breath a little bit. So I'm gonna sit forward, so I'm kind of perched on the front edge of my chair here. And then I'm gonna do some cat and cow movements of my spine. So this is rounding and arching of the back. If you have any back or neck issues, maybe the movements are a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna start with my hands on my lap. And on the inhale, lift the breastbone, bring the gaze up a little bit, the back arching forward. And then as you exhale, let the back round, drop the chin. That's the easy one. We'll do that again. So you inhale, lift the chest, bring the gaze up. Exhale, let the back round, shoulder blades move away from each other. And you can add a little arm movement here. So you can inhale, pull the arms out as you lift the chest. Exhale, bring the arms around like you're giving yourself a hug. Maybe do that 1 or 2 more times. So especially if you get some upper back stiffness, shoulder, neck stiffness, that can be helpful. Bring the hands back down. And then that was kind of 2 movements of the spine. Another 2 movements of the spine would be side bending. So you could reach one arm up and over on the inhale. Exhale, bring it back to center. Inhale, the other arm up and over. Exhale, bring it back to center. And you could do side to side here. I'm moving with my breath, but it could be that holding that stretch for longer feels good. For a few breaths. And you can also twist, so you can bring one hand to the opposite thigh and pull the other arm back behind you. Turn so you can see me here from the profile, and then switch sides. Or you could even wrap the arm around the back of the chair. So we're getting movement of the spine, which can feel good. We're activating muscles, contracting and releasing muscles here. That's going to increase the blood flow to the body, but also to the brain. So that can be helpful with the creative process, or if you're feeling fatigued and having trouble moving on with what you're writing. And we'll do a couple more things here. So talking about the wrist and the shoulders. So sometimes getting out of that kind of static position of the wrist can be helpful. So I'll turn here, you can see me here from the side. I'm gonna bring one hand forward. I'm using the other hand to pull my hand back to start to stretch on the underside of the wrist. Relaxing the shoulder. And so you might take a few breaths here. When these muscles on the underside of the forearm and the wrist get tight, it can lead to carpal tunnel syndrome. You might shake that hand out, do that on the other side. Make sure the shoulders are relaxed. Breathing. Releasing that. And something very similar here. So carpal tunnel syndrome is when this nerve that runs from the neck all the way down to the hand gets compressed here in the wrist. So we're going to do what's called a nerve glide for that nerve. It's also called nerve flossing. So if there's any bound down connective tissue around that nerve, we're going to loosen it up with this movement. So you could bring one arm out to the side, palm up, and then tip those fingers down. You'll feel a stretch through the forearm into the palm. And then bring that hand back into the shoulder. So you bring the arm out and tip the fingers down and then bring it back in. We'll do a few more like this. And you can add a little head movement. So the direction that arm is going, the head goes in that same direction. So if you feel a sensation down the forearm into the palm, maybe to the middle finger, that's good. If it's pain or tension or tingling rather, then you don't bring that hand back as far. Relax that. Maybe do a couple of backward shoulder rolls here. And we'll do this on the other side. So the arm out, palm up, and then we're gonna tip the fingers down, palm facing out away from you, and then bring that arm back in. So we inhale, bring it out, fingers down, exhale, pulling it back in. Maybe you add the head movements, the head tilts in the same direction the arm is moving. And just see if it feels different side to side. Sometimes the dominant hand is a little bit tighter. So this is the median nerve, is the name of the nerve that gets entrapped in that carpal tunnel. And that's why we're doing this gliding, sliding, flossing. All right, letting that go. Maybe a couple of backward shoulder rolls. And this is another movement that can be helpful here. Those rolling the shoulders back or squeezing the shoulder blades together and then letting it go. And we'll do a few things here from standing as well. So from standing, it's sometimes good to take a deep breath from here. And it can also be good to kind of let go a little bit of release and shoulder or muscular tension. So I'm standing with my feet about shoulder distance apart. And on the inhale, I'm going to breathe in through the nose. You might reach the arms up. And then open the mouth and really let out a big sigh. Let the arms swing. You can do that again. So big breath in. Maybe one more. Pulling in oxygen, letting go of carbon dioxide, all of that good for higher executive cognitive function here. So we'll do a few more movements here that you could use as movement breaks. So that 5-minute break in the hour. So taking your eyes away from the monitor, getting out of a seated or that static standing posture. So this one's called paintbrush hands. So this is one that I've borrowed from Tai Chi. So my feet are about shoulder distance apart, a little bend to both knees, so I'm kind of bouncy here. Bring the arms forward, relax through the wrist. And on the inhale, reach up with the backs of the wrist, and then flip your palms forward and sit back. You don't have to go low in that squat. Palms down, inhale, reaching up, palms forward, exhale, sitting back. Let's do that a couple more times. So it's that big breath in, a full breath out, stretching through the wrist, lifting the ribs, making space for the breath. All right, come on up. You can roll those shoulder blades again. You can also do a standing back bend. So if you're sitting, especially for long periods of time, or you notice yourself kind of slumping, you could bring the hands to the lower back, elbows pushing back, and first lengthen up. So think that tailbone down, top of the head up, and then arching back. And it could be just a very subtle lean, lifting the breastbone, bring the gaze up. For some of you, it might feel good to take a bigger back bend, take a couple breaths. So just reversing that sitting posture. We'll let that go. Release the arms, shake out the hands. Another one here that's really great for increasing the blood flow, and taking some deeper breaths. This one is the top part of a sun salutation, or that's what I call it. What's nice about these practices is you don't need to roll out a yoga mat, you don't need to change your clothes, you don't have to take your shoes off, any of that. So this next one here, we're gonna inhale, reach both arms up. On the exhale, sitting back. So I'm gonna bend the knees to hips, bring the hands to the thighs. I'm gonna turn just so you can see me from the side. On your inhale, stay here, but lengthen the spine, pressing the hands into knees, top of the head forward. Exhale, relax the shoulders. And then strong legs. Inhale, rise up, reach up, bring your palms together, and exhale the hands to prayer. Let's do that one more time. So we inhale, reach up. Exhale, sitting back. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, relax the shoulders. Strong legs. Inhale, rise up, reach up. Exhale, hands to prayer. Good, letting that go. You could shake out your wrists, you could roll the shoulders, and just see how you feel after that amount of movement. One more thing I want to show you, especially if you tend to sit more at the desk, is to stretch the hip flexors. So these muscles here in the front of the hips and thighs. When you're sitting at that 90-ish degree angle, the hip flexors are shortened. So if you're there for long periods of time, when you go to stand up, it might feel very stiff and tight, and it might actually pull on the lower back. So to do a hip flexor stretch, a simple one, again, putting one foot on a chair. And then the important part of this is we kind of tuck the tailbone under a little bit, flatten the low back and pull the belly button towards the spine. And then bend that front knee so you start to feel the stretch on the front of the hip and thigh. You might have to adjust where you are with this to get that stretch. Top of that, reaching up, relax the shoulders, breathing. And usually a 30-second stretch is good. But if you're like me, I'm like 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Oh, I forgot to send that email. 3 1,000. Oh, I'm out of eggs. What number was I on? So if I think of one slow deep breath being about 5 seconds, 6 slow deep breaths will give me a 30-second stretch. And you can switch to do this on the other side. So remember, it's tucking that tailbone under, belly button towards the spine, maybe bending through that front leg. Take a few breaths. So 30-second stretch on each side, 1 minute, right? That's not a huge chunk of time, but it could make a difference. And you could do this several times throughout the day. This is a good one if you have a lot of back pain, low back pain, or tension. All right, so we can come back to that front view, Grant. Thank you. And I think, yeah. So I'll stop sharing the screen. And I just want to do another breathing practice. So sometimes the act of writing, coming up with ideas, being creative, it flows easy. And sometimes it's really challenging. And sometimes the challenging times can produce anxiety, especially if you have deadlines or have some internal pressure that I'm sure a lot of us put on ourselves. So it can be helpful to take a step back and calm the nervous system down. So some of the movements that we're doing can be helpful for that. But using a breathing exercise, the breath is one way that we can literally tap right into the nervous system. And so if we're in a more anxious or worried mode, we're in more of the fight or flight part of our nervous system. And it's hard to be creative. It's hard to think straight, like that higher executive function, make decisions when we're in more of that fight or flight. So if we can shift our nervous system to more of that rest, digest, heal portion of it, we actually can be more creative. We have sort of more spaciousness of time, not thoughts that are kind of crowding in on us that take away from our ability to create and think. analytically. So what we're going to do is called an alternate nostril breathing exercise. So you might need to blow your nose before we start, because we're going to be closing one side of the nose, breathing in and breathing out, and then switching sides. Um, and just keep in mind, these breathing practices can actually be pretty powerful. And for some people, this can do the opposite. If they feel constricted in their breathing, that can cause more anxiety. So if you're feeling that, you can step away from this practice and do your own thing or just breathe smoothly. So I'm going to take my glasses off here because I'm going to use my hand here around my nose and in between my eyes. So you're going to take your right hand, middle and index fingers are going to be right here at the between the eyebrows. And you're going to have your ring finger near the left nostril and the thumb by the right nostril. Okay. So just go ahead and take a normal breath in and out. And we're going to close off the right nostril with the thumb and inhale through the left nostril. We close the left nostril and breathe out through the right nostril. Stay here, breathe in through the right. Close the right nostril, breathe out through the left. Staying here, breathe in through the left. Switch sides, close the left, breathe out through the right. Breathe in through the right. Close the right nostril, breathe out through the left. So keep going with this. We stay on the side and inhale. We switch nostrils on the exhale. And on the exhale through the left nostril. All right. I'm breathing normal here again. So if nothing else, you have to concentrate pretty hard on what you're doing. The sequence of it, which nostril you're breathing in or breathing out of. Am I taking a full breath? Am I taking a full exhale? So in that sense, that can take your brain out of other thoughts that might be crowding in. The alternate nostril breathing is kind of balancing that nervous system. So if you're especially in more of that fight or flight and less in the rest, digest, heal, it can shift you more to that rest, digest, heal part of the nervous system. Another way, that one's somewhat complicated. Like I always have to think about it or even watch a YouTube video or read something about how to do it in the sequence of it. But you can also do an extended exhale. I would do this when sitting or even lying down. So basically, if you lengthen your exhale, that again gets you more into the rest, digest, heal part of your nervous system. So I would start with just breathing in and out through the nose if you can. And start to slow the breath down. So it's not big, deep breaths. We're just lengthening the breath out. slowing it down. And then see if you can make your exhale longer than the inhale. Doesn't have to be super long, but exhale just a little longer than the inhale. So if you're in an anxious moment or worried, having trouble relaxing, having trouble sleeping, I'll use this breath when I have trouble sleeping. That can help release tension around the muscles that might be holding on a little tighter. And then when you're ready, returning to a normal breath, and just seeing how you feel. And it could be even just a minute of that breath, the extended exhale, a minute of that alternate nostril breathing that can really reset your nervous system, your brain function, um, and allow you to be more productive or creative, more analytical, more thorough in your writing or your tasks, whatever task you're trying to do, your research. And that all the things we've talked about today, maybe they're movement breaks, breath, the check-ins, the posture, all of those things are mindfulness. So again, you don't have to be doing yoga. You don't have to be sitting and meditating for mindfulness to take place. It's you just mostly checking in with yourself. And for you as writers, I would think it would also be taking a step back, taking a break from writing or researching or whatever that you're doing, so that you can be more effective and creative and or productive. Yeah. So I'm going to stop here and open this up for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. This was fantastic. I know
And
I learned a lot as well. Like even when you were doing that, I found myself my legs were crossed in my chair, and I was like, oh, like that I have to straighten up. But yeah, no, this was fantastic. We've got like a couple of questions here. I think I'll just jump through, bring one
okay.
up here. From Ridercraft podcast, they said here, if I have an anti-fatigue mat, can I be barefoot while at a standing desk, or do you recommend still wearing shoes?
So I mean, it's subjective and personal to most people. The anti-fatigue mat gives you some cushioning, but it doesn't give you arch support.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a shoe can be helpful. But if you're not having any problems, if you don't have any foot pain or back pain or low back or upper back pain, I mean, it's sort of a motto of physical therapists: if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm. Good to know.
So don't introduce something new because you think it's better for you,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're doing okay already.
Got it. Okay. The same viewer had a question also about what about sitting on a yoga ball?
Yeah. So, yeah, that can be useful. I wouldn't say doing that for like long periods of time. I think that's a good uh, variety of posture
Yep.
to be in. The my clients who have tried that, like to sit on the yoga ball for their workday, it's tiring for one. And then you end up slumped because you're so tired because you're having to try to hold and maintain.
Mhm.
That then it can kind of backfire. But I could totally see like a 30-minute interval of using it. And some of them have like the roller or tray underneath it to keep it, you're not having to work quite as hard to maintain your posture. So that might be a little bit easier too.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say using it more as variety of posture. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Good to know. And then I think we just have a few other just sort of general comments on what some other people use here. Tia says that they use the 20-20-20 method for screen time. So every 20 minutes, she looks at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds and has a visual timer to help her remember.
Yeah.
It seems like a really
That's
good and helpful
awesome.
tip. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
like that. Taking
and
your
then,
gaze away from the screen.
yeah.
Um, and that's, I mean, that's good for your brain. That's good for your eyes. It changes your posture because you're looking up and out. Yeah, and having that timer, is it an app that you have?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it might just be a well, Sushi says something in the thing, but yeah, it's I know there are some ta the apps that do that as well, or even
Yeah.
if it is just a visual sort of timer on your desk. I think you can even buy some sort of like little clock sort of timers for that purpose to have like that visual reminder. So then it's easy to get sort of sidetracked and not look at certain things, right? I know if I have sometimes apps on my phone and it reminds me, I'm not looking at it and I'm like, oh, I missed that reminder. Yeah, and then just some general feedback here. We had one from Elena saying it was very relaxing and calming. I agree. This was really cool. And then and Stacy also said, yeah, really enjoyed this, especially
Mm,
the nerve flossing. Yeah.
Thanks,
Um,
Stacy.
yeah. And then I think one more, and we got one more here saying Susan said for the extended exhale, she says you can consider using your hand as like a guide. So for raising and lowering to show your inhale and exhale,
Hmm.
which I thought was really,
Yeah.
really cool. Awesome. I think that's all. Yeah, that was all the questions we had. So, thank you so much, Laura. This has been fantastic. So, for anyone that wants to learn more about Laura and her practice, you can learn more at yogaandpt.com. If you liked today's content, please sign up for a free account at writtenwordmedia.com to learn about our future speakers. Written Word Media is the marketing hub for authors, and we'd love to have you join our community. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Laura, for joining us. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.